Are you considering taking the PANRE-LA, but you're just not sure about signing up for a test that can last 2 to 3 years? Trust me, I completely understand your dilemma because I was there myself last year. I did end up choosing the PANRE-LA, and I just finished my fourth quarter, so 1 year down, hopefully only 1 year to go. So in this video, I am going to tell you what I think about the test at the end of 1 year, and if it's been a real burden having to keep up every quarter with doing a test, and if I regret that I signed up for the PANRE-LA. I'm also going to give a brief tutorial on efficiently and effectively using the SmartyPANCE Searchable Blueprint. I've heard some people say that they found it a little confusing or they thought it took a lot of clicks to find what they needed, but I don't find that. I think it's a great resource, and I'm going to show you the two tools that I use in SmartyPANCE to find pretty much all the answers that I need. I'm also going to share test taking tips with you. I'll repeat some of the ones that I had talked about in previous videos, but I'm going to add a few new ones that I've picked up in the last couple of quarters. So let's talk about this test first. I think some people may not understand why I say 2 to 3 years. You pass the test by passing 8 quarters of the exam. So you do one set of 25 questions every 3 months, every quarter of the year. And so the quickest that you can get done is in 2 years. But they realize that sometimes things come up and you may not be able to get to your questions in a quarter, maybe a really busy quarter, you have a big event in your life and you don't even want to deal with it. You don't have to take it every quarter. Or it may be that you don't pass a quarter. So they give you 4 extra quarters to be able to have some flexibility. So the minimum amount of time to take the test is 2 years, the maximum time is 3 years. I thought, I'm just going to be thinking about this thing all the time. It's going to feel like another big weight or to do on my list of things, and life is already busy enough. And yes, it is something I have to do every quarter. And the first couple of quarters, it was a little bit more obnoxious and on my mind more. But honestly, the last 2 quarters, I haven't even thought about the test until towards the end of the quarter. Some people do it right away, the first of the quarter, and get it done with, and they don't think about it for the next 2 quarters. I kind of do the opposite. I procrastinate. I don't think about it at all for the first 2 quarters. And then when I get that email from NCCPA saying, hey, you've got 1 more month to finish this quarter, I'll be like, okay, I got to go in and do some questions. Typically do it all in one setting. Sometimes I break it up and, if I have a few minutes, I'm not doing something else, I'll answer a few questions. But usually I'll just do all 25 in one sitting. And even if I spent the total of 5 minutes that you are given for each question, that's still only 2 hours of time, pretty much max. I don't spend any additional time studying or reviewing before I take the test. I just sit down and do it, which I think is how most people do it. So if you look at it, 2 hours once a quarter, that's 8 hours a year, 16 hours max for 2 years. I don't find it that much of a burden. I think it's fine. Sure, I would like to work ahead or, be done with it in a year, but it is what it is. And I think the 25 question block is pretty nice. It's enough to get a big chunk done every quarter, but it's not too much to really stress you out. And I think most people that I'm seeing online agree with it. They're loving the PANRE-LA, and then they think this is the best option and everyone should pick it. But I have seen some people that have a different opinion. Some people say they absolutely hate it. They would never choose it again. They regret that they chose it. And for those that don't like it, mainly it comes into 2 categories. One is their life is just too busy, and having to do something, even if it's only a couple hours every quarter, something they have to keep up with, they just don't want to do it. They think it's just too much. They'd rather just do it in one day and get it all done and do the traditional PANRE. For other people, they say that they took the PANRE-LA because they have test anxiety. And while it's easier to take the test at home, they're realizing that instead of having test anxiety for a day and it gets relieved and they don't have to think about it for 10 more years, now they've traded that for a little bit of test anxiety every quarter for 2 years. I understand their point, but I would say if you have test anxiety really bad to the point where you kind of go blank when you're in a testing center, even if there's a little anxiety spread out over the quarters, I think you would still do better taking the PANRE-LA at home. So overall, I prefer the PANRE-LA over the PANRE. But if you want to take the PANRE, it has its pros also. It is nice to be able to get it done, not have to think about it for 10 years. But if you're going to take the PANRE, you're probably going to need to take a review course or at least spend quite a few hours studying beforehand. If you want to take a review course, I highly recommend CME for Life. And again, another PA run company. And I think that their CME is fantastic. It's engaging and as entertaining as medical education can be, and also gives you great ways to remember things. So I'll put a link to their website below if you want to check out their course. And I'm happy to say I can also offer you a discount where you can save a little bit of money if you're going to sign up for the course. Now, I think if you're taking the PANRE-LA that you need to identify what your resource is going to be and just use that every time, get familiar with it. I know a lot of people use Google and Google will work just fine. I like a more specific source. So I like SmartyPANCE Searchable Blueprint. It doesn't have 100% of everything I need, but I can find most of the answers in there. Now, let's do a quick tutorial here. I'll use one of the SmartyPANCE practice questions. When you sign up for their membership, you get a lot of different things to study with. But all I really use it for is the searchable blueprint and then this rapid search button. So when I get ready to take the test, I have SmartyPANCE opened. And I will go in and I will open in a tab the searchable blueprint. And then in a separate tab, I'll also open this rapid search bar. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I have those open and ready to go. I got my lab value source open. The question tells me what system it's going to be in. So then I make sure that in the blueprint, I open that particular system and I see all the conditions listed there for that system. And so if I think I know what the answer is, then I'll just click on that particular condition and then this will pop up. Now, I think this is where somebody thought it was kind of confusing. The first page that pops up, sometimes there'll be a little video there or a lecture or a diagram or something. And then they scroll down and they'll see some wording and then they'll see practice questions. They're like, I don't want all that. I think it's just a matter of that they're not familiar with the setup of it. Whatever resource you're using, you should get familiar with it before you start using it. So on this first page here, sometimes it will have a diagram or a video or something that pulls up. I scroll past that really quickly. That paragraph there, that is going to be the description. It's going to be the vignette that they're presenting you with. Not going to match the vignette in your question. But what they've done is in their vignette, they've included and bolded all of the specific words and phrases that go along with that condition. NCCPA, they have to, when they write a question, they have to give you those words and phrases that are going to point you in the right direction. And SmartyPANCE is going to have that listed there as well. Oftentimes they're going to match word for word. Sometimes they'll be just a little bit different, but it will definitely be very similar. So that is where you find the description. But what if you want something that's a little bit more specific? Then you can click here on the pearls and it's going to list other information associated with that disease. Or if it's questions asking about treatment or diagnosis, you can click on these other tabs here. So it's separated out. To me, it's very logical and methodical. It starts with presentation, extra pearls and things that you might need to know. And then it's got treatment and diagnosis. So very simple to use. But what happens if you read the vignette and you're like, I don't know which of these conditions it's talking about? Well, you could look up each particular one, but that's going to take you some time. So that's where this rapid search comes in handy. You can take the most specific and unique phrasing from that vignette, like this one, and then you take that and you go to your tab with the rapid search and you type in that specific thing, and it's going to pull up any conditions that those keywords match. Sometimes it's just going to be one or two conditions. Sometimes it'll be several, but you are, again, remember what system you're in. So then when you've identified what you think matches in the category you're at, you'll see here that the condition is also still a searchable link. So then you can click on that searchable link and it will take you to all of that information about the condition. So then you can verify that your answer is correct. I didn't even know about this feature for the first couple of quarters. So I was just using the searchable blueprint. But then when I discovered this, it really is a nice adjunct to the searchable blueprint and a really helpful tool. I hope you can see how efficient and effective SmartyPANCE Searchable Blueprint is. If you like this and want to use it as a resource, I, again, highly recommend it. Is a PA owned and run company. Steve Pasquini owns it. He's been doing great work for years, helping people prepare for the PANCE and the PANRE. And I think he's done a fabulous job on this blueprint. So I love to support PA owned and run companies. So I'll put the link to their website down below, and I thankfully have a discount code for them as well. Some people prefer books, so I'll put some links down below to the ones that are going to help you the most. Now let's get to the test taking tips. I'm going to quickly run through ones that I had mentioned before. One tip is to make sure you've got two screens that you're using, keeping the test separate from your resources that you're looking at. Second one is make sure you have your own lab value sheet. There's one provided in the exam, but I don't like it at all. I don't think it's very helpful. Third is if you have a long vignette, I read the ending first so you know what they're asking for. And then the most important one is make sure you have an answer selected. Read the question, select your best answer, and then if you need to research, go research. The reason you want to do that is if the test times out or your computer glitches, your internet goes down, whatever happens, you at least have a chance to get the answer right because you selected an answer. Otherwise, it's going to be marked wrong automatically. Now let's dive into some of the test taking tips I've learned since the last video I did. And the first one is, like I said earlier, think about the system that you're being tested over. I kind of had to laugh because there was one question that I read it. I thought I knew what the answer was, looked at the answers, and I think that's that one. But there was another one, it's like, oh, that might be it too. And I was debating and I was just getting ready to go do some, searching for it. And then it hit me. It's like, oh, well, the answer that I think it is, that's the only one that's actually listed in the blueprint under that system I'm being tested over. The other ones are all in different systems, so they're obviously not going to be the answer. So I didn't even have to spend any time searching, and I had confirmation that was the right answer. It's helpful to always remember what system you're being tested in. Second, like I said earlier, identify and search for those unusual facts that are going to be present. The one thing that's going to distinguish that from anything else, this may be quite obvious, but just in case people aren't sure how to search for stuff, even if it's asking you like for the next best steps or what imaging you need and things, you have to know what the diagnosis is first. And to get to that diagnosis, you're going to be identifying those most unusual aspects and searching for those. Third, if you think you know what the answer is, but you're kind of OCD like me and you like to get exact confirmation that the answer you chose is right, sometimes it's hard because you're not going to find the exact description the way it's described in the vignette. So I used to spend a lot of time then going to Google and trying to find it in other resources and getting frustrated. You pull something up and it's got different pop-ups, or you can't find, where it's referencing this particular condition or whatever. And I would just get annoyed and spend a lot of time spinning my wheels for that. I finally got smart and realized that I can look at the other answers. I can look them up quickly in the blueprint and oftentimes knock out the other answers, or sometimes the description in that answer will point back to your original answer or to the correct answer. So don't forget that you can use the other answers, even if you think they're wrong, to help confirm your right answer. And finally, this is a tip that I don't particularly use, but I've seen people mention online, and they batch questions from their weakest system. So for those of you who don't know, in the exam, NCCPA allows you to basically skip a question. You can batch it and put it away for later. It can be later that session, or you can actually exit out the test and go back in later, and that question will still be held to the side. Now, you don't get to see what the question is. You only get to know what category it's going to be in. So that's why I say people identify their weakest system, the one that they feel like they really need to do some more studying on, and they just feel a little extra stress over that system. So they'll go through taking the test, they'll answer question 1, 2, 3, and then they get to question 4, and it says, oh, this question is going to be in psych. And they think, psych's not my thing. I don't even want to deal with it right now. They'll just batch it, and then they'll go on to question 5 and, so on. And so then later, you can go back at a later date and you can study the system, the different things in the blueprint for that system, do a little studying and learning, and then dive in and take those questions. Again, I don't use that, but I can see how it can be helpful for some people. Now, if you're still trying to decide between the PANRE and the PANRE-LA, you want to hear more of the pros and cons, you want to see behind the scenes of the PANRE-LA dashboard, see how the exam is set up, or if you want to see my reactions to the exam after the first quarter, then I have a PANRE-LA playlist here. You can click on that and look at the different videos available. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.